My daughter came to visit me in the hospital and said,
"You shouldn't come back home even after you're discharged."
I tilted my head in confusion, unable to understand what she meant.
"Then look at this."
When she handed me the photo with her mysterious powers, I couldn't stop trembling. What I saw in the photo was so unbelievable, I doubted my own eyes. In that moment, everything came crashing down. And at the same time, a perfectly orchestrated act of revenge was about to unfold. My name is Olivia, and I'm 32 years old. I lived with my husband, Jason, who is 3 years older than me, and our 5-year-old daughter. Jason and I worked at the same company, and I was drawn to his cheerful personality. When I got pregnant, I initially planned to quit my job, but after consulting with HR, I changed my mind. Instead, I returned to work after maternity leave, assigned to a different department from Jason. Since we were both working, Jason and I shared household chores and tried to handle parenting together as much as possible. Our daughter, Sherry, was cheerful and loved going to daycare. Even from a young age, she was helpful around the house. 2 years ago, when I was organizing my late parents' home, Sherry eagerly pitched in. However, she was still a little girl back then. When she found my father's Polaroid camera, she became so fascinated by it that she stopped helping. Jason, who was there at the time, said,
"Hey, little photographer. Could you take a picture of me?"
Sherry enthusiastically replied,
"Say cheese."
Though neither of them helped much after that, it was a heartwarming sight for me. I also have an older sister, Michelle, who is 3 years my senior and a great listener. I often confided in her, sharing everything, even the story of how I met Jason. Since Michelle's daughter was the same age as Sherry, our families visited each other frequently, and we had a close relationship. But things started to change after I turned 30. Jason began coming home late, claiming work as the reason, and he stopped helping with housework entirely. He even started going out on weekends, leaving Sherry feeling lonely. One day, I confronted him about it.
"Why the hell should a man like me have to clean the house? Let me do what I want on my days off."
He yelled at me, and from then on, our conversations became scarce, and our marriage began to deteriorate. However, whenever my sister Michelle came over, Jason's attitude would completely change.
"Michelle! Welcome! You should stay over tonight."
Over time, Jason and Michelle seemed to grow close without my noticing. Even when I was around, they would get so engrossed in their conversations that it felt like I wasn't even there. Around the same time, a deep sense of unease began to consume me. One day, I tried to ride my bicycle, only to find that the brakes were broken. The area around our home is full of steep hills, and if I hadn't noticed, it could have led to a terrible accident. On another day, the screws on the ladder were loose. One small misstep, and it could have caused a serious disaster. Should I talk to Jason about this? But then again, these days, whenever my husband came home, he would go straight to bed, leaving me no chance to bring anything up. Phew, that was close. Still, I'm relieved I was safe this time too. The truth is, there's a reason I've narrowly avoided fatal incidents again and again. While unsettling events kept piling up, my daughter went to stay overnight at my sister's house by herself. As a result, it was just Jason and me at home, alone as a couple. Feeling strangely restless, I decided to clean areas of the house I normally wouldn't bother with. That's when Jason slowly approached me and said,
Since it's just us, how about we go see the night view? You know, the place we used to visit a lot when we were dating.
Huh? That's sudden, what's going on?
The truth is, I've been so busy with work that I ended up being cold toward you. I'm sorry. I want us to go back to how we were and fix our relationship.
With those words, he pulled me into a tight embrace. The place he was talking about was a small hill about 10 minutes away by car. It was a hidden spot with a beautiful view of the city, and it was where he had first asked me to be his girlfriend. It was a special place, full of memories for me. Jason, so you still care about me? I was so overwhelmed with happiness that tears welled up in my eyes. Together, we decided to go see the night view. I quickly got ready and was about to head out the door when Jason said,
I can't let a lady carry her own bag.
He took my bag from me, a gentlemanly gesture that made my heart skip a beat. Little did I know that this seemingly kind act would later lead to a tragic turn of events. When we arrived at the location, my husband's earlier kindness vanished entirely. He simply said,
I'll go ahead and find the best spot to see the night view.
Then disappeared into the darkness with a flashlight. Wait. Don't leave me behind. I tried to hurry, but it was pitch black, and I couldn't see anything. I reached for my phone to use its light, but it was in the bag I had handed to Jason. The uneven ground made every step precarious, and I had to tread carefully to avoid falling. Suddenly, I felt a forceful push from behind, as if someone had shoved me. I lost my balance and tumbled over the edge of a cliff. The next thing I knew, I was lying in a hospital bed. Jason was there, holding my hand, his voice trembling with emotion.
When I couldn't find you, I started to panic. Then I saw an ambulance and rushed over, only to see you being carried on a stretcher. I thought I was going to lose you.
He looked on the verge of tears as he spoke. A nurse later explained that someone had found me lying at the bottom of the cliff and called for help. Oddly enough, my sister Michelle was also there and had even ridden in the ambulance with me.
Michelle helped with your hospital arrangements and offered to take care of Sherry at her house until you're discharged.
I see. Michelle did all that. Thankfully, my injuries weren't life-threatening, and I was told I could go home 3 days later. The day before my discharge, my 5-year-old daughter came to visit me. However, she looked unusually gloomy. I'm so sorry for worrying you, sweetie. But don't worry, I'll be back home tomorrow. I tried to reassure her with a cheerful tone, but Sherry's expression remained tense. After a moment of hesitation, she nodded, then said something shocking.
You shouldn't go back home, even after you're discharged.
Why not? Look, I'm fine now, see? I couldn't understand what she was saying and smiled to ease the tension. But Sherry stayed serious. She rummaged through her bag and pulled out a photo.
Mom, look at this.
What? Is this for real? The moment I saw the picture, I was overcome with fear, my body trembling uncontrollably. At that moment, I realized who had been behind all the incidents that had endangered my life. Unforgivable. I trusted them. Anger boiled up from deep within me, and I couldn't sit still. but there were still too many unanswered questions. I couldn't act until I had solid proof. So, I sent Jason a text. My hospital stay has been extended by a week. I also told him that I had been transferred to another hospital due to a bed shortage and that visitors weren't allowed there. A week later, I returned home.
If you had told me your discharge date, I would have rushed to pick you up.
My husband smiled warmly at me as he returned from work. Thanks, but Jason, I could never get in a car with you again. After all, you've been trying to kill me. With that, I showed him a photo.
What the? When was this taken?
The image clearly captured the moment he pushed me off the cliff in the darkness.
There weren't any security cameras there, and I even turned off the car's dash cam. How does this exist?
His confusion was understandable. The photo had been psychically imprinted by my daughter Sherry using my late father's Polaroid camera. Sherry possessed a mysterious ability to sense impending danger and capture the scene on film with the camera. This gift had manifested around the same time that life-threatening incidents began happening to me.
Mom, stay still. Something scary is about to happen.
One day, she handed me a photo out of the blue. It was thanks to her that I avoided disasters like my bike's broken brakes or a wobbly ladder. However, we kept her powers a secret, fearing others might see her as strange. I had confided in my sister Michelle, but since Jason and I barely spoke anymore, I never mentioned it to him. According to Sherry, she couldn't identify the culprit behind the earlier incidents. But this time, she clearly saw Jason trying to get rid of me.
I have to tell Mom. But her phone isn't connecting. What should I do?
Sherry, do you know where that place is? Can you describe anything nearby?
Through patient questioning, Michelle realized it was the hill I had often talked about. A place filled with memories of Jason and me. They rushed there and found me, just as a passerby had called for help. Later, Michelle retrieved my father's Polaroid camera from our house, and Sherry used it to psychically capture Jason's actions. She brought the photo to show me at the hospital.
This is fake. You're trying to frame me.
Oh, really? Then how do you explain this, Jason? You brought a young woman from work into our home while I was away, didn't you? I played a video on my phone showing Jason and the woman getting cozy. There's no way I, a complete amateur, could fabricate footage like this. Why don't you just admit it? I pointed to a hidden camera I had installed in the house.
How did you manage to set all this up while you were in the hospital?
Unbeknownst to him, I had stayed at Michelle's house while pretending my hospital stay was extended, using the time to gather evidence against him. At first, I had been jealous of Jason's closeness with Michelle. But it turned out my sister was merely being polite, and she became my greatest ally in exposing Jason.
Wait! Let's calm down and talk this over. Here, have some tea.
Suddenly, he offered me a cup of tea. But Sherry had already captured this moment in a photo, too. Isn't there something suspicious in that tea? I pulled out a picture showing Jason adding a powdered substance into the cup.
Ah!
His face turned pale, and he began trembling with fear. Confess everything, I demanded, stepping closer to him. Shaking, Jason began to tell the whole story. According to my husband, he had fallen in love at first sight with a new employee, and eventually, they became romantically involved. He started wanting to marry her, but the fact that she worked at the same company as us made him hesitant.
If I divorced you and remarried her right away, she'd be labeled as a bad woman who stole her husband's partner. Don't you think? That would be terrible for her.
Wait, so you were trying to kill me to protect your mistress?
If you were gone, she wouldn't be looked at strangely anymore, and I wouldn't have to argue with you when we divorced. It would have been killing two birds with one stone.
He reluctantly confessed that all the dangerous incidents that had been happening around me were his doing. You're the worst. If that's the case, then I'll divorce you just like you wanted, Jason. But, will you even be able to be with your mistress?
What do you mean by that?
She wasn't even interested in you, apparently. At this point, I had already contacted the mistress and confronted her. Apparently, she was drawn to the idea of me being married to a high-achieving husband, someone she could feel superior to. She had only been indulging in her ego, and there was no real affection for Jason.
So, she didn't actually like me?
As she had said, I was well regarded within the company, and I hadn't resigned because the higher-ups had begged me to stay. The mistress had agreed to accept alimony, submit her resignation, and leave the company without meeting Jason. The sudden separation and the fact that she never loved him left Jason in tears. Also, this issue has reached the company, and I was interviewed by HR. So, I've reported everything you've done, Jason.
No way! If that gets out, I'll be fired! Olivia, please help me! You're the only one who can save me!
How dare you say something like that? I'm divorcing you, and you'll pay alimony and child support. And I'm going to the police, so get ready. I had secretly recorded him confessing with a voice recorder. With this evidence, I could probably prove his wrongdoing. Jason stood frozen, completely drained of life, but I decided to deliver one final blow. Oh, and I have this too. I took out another photo and held it up in front of him. It was a picture of Jason as a homeless man in the future. Of course, this too was captured by my daughter's mysterious ability.
I don't want to see that! No! Please! Olivia! Forgive me!
Jason clung to me, sobbing, repeating his apologies. But no matter how much he begged, his actions were unforgivable. I never want to see your face again, Jason. Don't ever come near me again. You can rot in hell.
Damn it!
As he collapsed into tears, I coldly looked down at him and called the police. When the officers arrived, Jason was arrested. After being questioned, Jason admitted everything he had done and will likely be charged with some crime. The company took the matter very seriously and fired him. I divorced him, demanding $30,000 in alimony and $500 per month in child support. As for the mistress, I made her pay $10,000. With no income, Jason borrowed money from shady lenders to pay me, and now, he is living in a park, constantly looking over his shoulder in fear of debt collectors. Just as my daughter had predicted, the future unfolded. However, her mysterious ability faded after a while. I'm not sure what it was all about, but I'm glad it's over. I got a promotion at my job, and my salary increased significantly. Thanks to that, my daughter and I are now living happily every day. How did you like today's story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.
Mom has passed away. Please transfer $30,000 for the funeral expenses.
What? No way. I was confused. Because standing right next to me was my supposedly deceased mother-in-law. Moreover, he abruptly hung up. Then, my mother-in-law casually suggested a surprising idea. I have a good plan. Ignoring my confusion, she started to lay out a certain plan.
Let's go confront him.
Encouraged by her words, I took action to confront my husband. My name is Emily. I married my husband, Mike, who is 5 years younger, when I was 32. Mike, who was a bit clueless but lovable, was what you'd call a lovable character.
Emily, please.
Whenever he smiled and asked, I couldn't refuse anything he requested. Though his slightly careless nature was a flaw, his presence always brightened the atmosphere and made him a mood maker. In contrast, my mother-in-law, Martha, was very straightforward. We didn't live together, but she had a slightly intimidating aura. Apparently, my husband had always been uncomfortable around his mother.
You don't have to force yourself to get along with her.
He even told me that. Even so, I am your wife here. I couldn't just follow Mike's words, and I was full of anxiety about how to get along with her.
Mike has always lived with us, so he can't do many things. He might cause you trouble, Emily.
This is what my mother-in-law said when she suddenly called me after the wedding. At that time, Mike was out with friends, so I was alone. Not knowing how to respond, I just said, "No, it's not like that," and fell silent.
I know it's my fault for not raising him better. So, please consult me if anything happens.
I was happy to hear such kind words from my mother-in-law, who seemed so different from her appearance and aura. I didn't mention this phone call to Mike, thinking it wasn't necessary. For a while after the wedding, we lived peaceful days, but as time went by, my husband's carelessness began to stand out more and more. This is what his mother was talking about. Every time I saw his actions, I thought so. He often left his clothes and socks lying around and didn't clean up his dishes after eating. Put this in the washing machine and this in the sink. I repeatedly told Mike every day.
Oh, sorry. But can't the person who notices do it? Please, Emily.
I wasn't sure if he was ignoring it or what, but it didn't seem to sink in at all. If I don't notice, the house will be a mess. Is that okay?
You're responsible, Emily, so it's fine. Right?
His innocent smile made me feel it was useless to say anything more, and I couldn't insist any further. Moreover, this was still considered rather cute. My husband was often late and frequently broke promises. For Mike's birthday, why don't I cook a feast and celebrate at home?
Sounds great. I love your cooking, Emily, so I'm looking forward to it.
On the day, I prepared his gift, made a luxurious meal, and eagerly awaited his return. However, despite it being his usual time to come home, there was no sound of the front door opening. This is strange. He said he'd be back early. I decided to call Mike. No matter how many times I called, he didn't answer, and eventually, it went to voicemail. What happened? Mike didn't contact me even once, and he came home early the next morning.
Emily, I'm sorry. I didn't call and it's so late.
Sensing my displeasure, he apologized as soon as he saw me. I was worried. I thought something might have happened. I was so anxious.
I'm sorry. There was a problem at work, and I had to stay up all night. It was so busy I couldn't check my phone.
If that's the case, I understand. Though I understood, I was still bothered by the fact that he couldn't even send a quick message. From now on, please at least send a text if you're going to be late.
Got it?
We agreed on that, but although he started messaging, his late returns became more frequent. Then, one day, I checked our joint savings account and noticed money was frequently being withdrawn. We had started saving together after getting married, and since I had a better income, I was the one who usually deposited more. Meanwhile, Mike's contributions were inconsistent, highlighting his carelessness once again. Hey, did you withdraw money from our savings?
Well.
Mike seemed to realize he was caught and avoided my gaze. When I pressed him, he admitted, actually, he needed money for a paid skill development course at work. Don't you think it's unfair to use it without asking? You should have discussed it with me. When I spoke sternly, Mike looked downcast.
I thought I could repay it once the training was over and my salary increased.
His hesitant explanation made me suspicious. Excuses again. I wanted him to be more responsible with money than anything else. This led to some tension between us. Around this time, I started focusing more on his negative traits. But, thinking that we were married and should appreciate each other's good points, I tried to change my mindset. Mike is kind and gentle. However, the seed of distrust and frustration kept growing and occupied my thoughts. I should talk to Martha. When I contacted my mother-in-law, she said,
I was about to invite you for shopping.
She made time immediately, and we met up. Since Mike was working that day, I didn't mention my outing with her. While we were shopping, I got a call from Mike, who was supposed to be at work. Thinking it might be an emergency, I quickly answered. What's wrong? Aren't you at work?
Mom passed away. Please transfer $30,000 for the funeral.
What? What do you mean? I was shocked and speechless at the unexpected news. Seeing my reaction, Martha looked puzzled.
Just do it, okay?
He said and abruptly hung up. As I stood there stunned, my mother-in-law asked, What's wrong? I snapped back to reality and told her about the call. But you're right here. Could it be a scam? Thinking this, I checked the call log, and it was indeed from Mike. I was even more confused and decided to call him back.
Wait a moment.
Then, she took my phone.
I have a good idea. Let's give him $30,000.
What? Martha casually said something surprising and began discussing a plan with me, despite my confusion. I see.
Let's confront him.
Thus, our plan began. While waiting for my husband to come home, I prepared the $30,000 he had asked for.
Haven't you got the money ready yet? I need you to transfer it quickly.
2 hours after the first call, Mike called again, sounding impatient. Sorry, it's a large amount, so I haven't gotten it yet. I should have it ready by tomorrow.
Got it. Just make sure you do. And I won't be home tonight because I'm meeting with the funeral director.
Once again, He abruptly ended the call. Despite my concerns, I resumed my preparations calmly. The next day, as soon as my husband came home, he rushed over to me.
Is the money ready?
He kept asking about it. Someone I trust will bring it later, so don't worry.
Who?
I can't say yet. But first, we need to talk. I turned to face Mike, looking at him seriously. He looked at me with suspicion. What caused your mom's death? I want to see her and say goodbye.
Emily, you shouldn't see her. It was an accident, and her condition is really bad. You'd be shocked.
But I need to attend the funeral as her daughter-in-law. Even though I said this, he kept insisting I shouldn't, without providing any details. At that moment, the door between the living room and the adjoining room suddenly opened.
Tell me what state I'm in.
Standing there was my mother-in-law.
Mom? Emily, what's going on?
Wow, Martha. You came back to life. While I put on a theatrical act, Martha slowly approached Mike.
Here's $30,000. I never thought I'd pay for my own funeral while alive.
She handed him a heavy envelope, her eyes teary.
Oh, thanks.
I thought to myself, how stupid can he be, but kept it to myself. Martha also turned her face away from Mike for a moment, probably stifling a laugh.
By the way, you used a good picture for my memorial photo, right?
Yeah.
Her intensity made Mike step back. Martha, wouldn't it be nice to have a clear picture like this? I quickly held out a photo.
Yes, a picture where my face is clear. Wait, isn't this Mike?
When Martha took the photo and looked closely, she was astonished. Yes, that's him.
Who's the woman with heavy makeup next to him?
She's Mike's mistress. It was a photo of Mike entering a neon-lit motel with a woman. Mike, left out of the conversation, looked confused but snatched the photo from Martha when he heard mistress.
What? How?
He muttered, but I ignored him and showed Martha another photo. Here's another one.
Oh my! What is this?
Mike grabbed it from us too, sweating as he saw it was a close-up of him grinning with the woman. Since his late returns, I had suspected Mike of cheating. I followed him after work, searched his room for evidence, and gathered information bit by bit. This woman is Mary, who works at a nightclub, right? You spent a lot on her.
No. I don't know anything about that.
He was clearly panicking, his eyes darting around. This isn't all the evidence. I have plenty more. I presented receipts from luxury stores, photos of him leaving those shops with bags, and printed emails. I even had pictures of him entering payday loan offices. He had likely used our savings and taken loans to spend on his mistress. Seeing his shameful, careless behavior made me feel only disdain. Mike fell silent as he looked at the evidence.
You needed money for this woman. That's why you pretended I was dead and demanded money from Emily.
What a terrible person. Truly the worst. Mike, feeling cornered by me and his mother, glared at us.
How does Mom even know about the $30,000?
He pouted angrily. Did you think you could fool me with such a call? You underestimated me.
But Emily hates my mom, right? so I thought you wouldn't meet her and wouldn't find out.
When did I ever say that? I've always admired and relied on her. Mike must have assumed I shared his feelings about his mother. Not that I was complimenting him, but this was so typical of him. By the way, when you called, I was out shopping with her.
So, you and Mom pretended to be fooled and set me up?
He tried to defend himself but muttered, "That's so mean." He probably thought it was a whisper, but we heard it clearly. Ignoring his comment, Martha smiled at him.
Oh, don't say such nasty things. It was my idea to teach you a lesson.
No way.
I had also talked to Martha about Mike's affair that day. When he called, she saw the evidence I had shown her and deduced.
This call is related to his affair.
After thinking for a bit, she came up with, "I have a good idea." So, she planned, and I executed, the ultimate team effort to bring him down. "So, will you divorce me?" I handed him the divorce papers with my signature.
What?
"And I'll be asking for alimony." He looked down, then suddenly raised his head.
Okay. I'll use this $30,000 for alimony. Then I'll marry Mary.
He declared triumphantly. That money wasn't yours to begin with. He reluctantly handed me the envelope from his mother.
I still prefer a young, cute girl. You're just a walking wallet. Nothing else good about you.
His rude words made me furious, but I smiled like Martha. You can have that money as a property settlement.
Really? Cool.
He hugged the envelope tightly. But alimony is separate. I expect your sincerity.
Yeah. Sure.
He seemed deflated by my unexpected response.
I'll pay up. Mary will help, so I'll get it together soon.
He grinned, imagining his future with his mistress. To deliver the final blow to him, my mother-in-law and I exchanged silent nods.
Mike, sorry to ruin your fun, but can you listen to this?
Huh? What is it?
My mother-in-law took out her phone from her pocket and started playing a recording. Hearing it, my husband seemed very confused and said, "Wait, what?" It was the voice of his mistress, Mary. While I was preparing the money, my mother-in-law had gone to meet her. Mary was heard saying,
"Mike is handsome, but he's stingy and cheap."
followed by a nasal laugh. Moreover, Mary said,
"I had no idea he was married. The physical chemistry was good, but a guy who cheats is the worst."
Mike's face turned pale, and he started trembling at her words.
This is a lie. Mary wouldn't say such things. Mom must have forced her.
These are her own words. And it's not done yet, so listen until the end.
There's more. Maybe she's just pretending and will confess her love for me.
His naive thoughts made both my mother-in-law and me smirk.
Let's see. Hear for yourself.
As my mother-in-law resumed the recording, Mike eagerly awaited the so-called love confession. But what came from the phone was,
"I'm going back home to find a wealthy man through matchmaking."
her cheerful voice said. Mike's expression changed drastically at those words. I had to stifle my laughter.
This is reality. Got it? It's different from your fantasies.
Mike's eyes welled up with tears as his mom delivered the final blow.
Mom, this isn't true, right? Please say it's not.
I'll tell you as many times as needed. It's reality.
No way. How about coming with me to Mary now and convincing her?
Are you stupid? It's over.
Crying to his mother didn't help, and she cut him off sharply. He then turned to me, seeking sympathy.
Emily, can you reconsider the divorce?
After all this?
Please. Emily, please?
He clasped his hands and tilted his head in a pleading gesture. In the past, I might have given in to this, but I was fully awake now. Sorry for not being young. But I can't stay with a man who lies about his mother's death and cheats to spoil his mistress, I said, pushing Mike away. He muttered, "No way," and collapsed in a daze. Thinking it was over, my mother-in-law and I exchanged a handshake, but my husband suddenly stood up.
I have to return it. Today's the last day.
He shouted and rushed off with the $30,000 envelope. Wait, you need to check what's inside. My voice didn't reach him.
Well, let it be. It'll be funny.
True. My husband was probably heading to a payday loan office to pay off his debt. But the envelope contained a bundle of paper cut to the size of bills, prepared by me. It was a painstaking task, but necessary. I could imagine him panicking there, but it was no longer my concern. Later, we finalized the divorce. I demanded $20,000 in alimony for the affair. It seemed he had no money and had to borrow from another dubious lender to pay. He reportedly presented the bundle of paper at the first loan office, only to be thoroughly scolded when the contents were revealed. My former mother-in-law, Martha, also cut ties with him. When he cried, "Don't be mad over something like this," Martha replied,
Your mother is supposed to be dead, right? Isn't that fine?
She ignored him. He apologized repeatedly, but she never responded. All of this was his own doing. As for me, I'm living every day to the fullest, with work as my passion. I'm striving to become the first female manager in my 30s at my company. I occasionally meet with Martha for lunch, sharing our updates like good friends. Looking forward to a long and fulfilling life ahead, I plan to live true to myself. How did you like this story? Please subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video.